Welcome everyone to Going Through Game of Thrones. My name is Triple S. In this video, I'll be talking about the 10th and final episode of the first season, Fire and Blood. I'll be going through what I like and dislike about the episode, what I feel it does better or worse compared to the source material, and I'll also bring up anything I find interesting or noteworthy enough to mention. There might be spoilers for future episodes and books as well, so you've been warned. With all that said, let's begin. Rather than just Osha and Bran going down into the crypts, in the book, Summer and Maester Luwin also joined them, and most of what Osha says in the show, Maester Luwin says in the book. Osha actually encourages Bran in the book, telling him how the children of the forest and giants still exist north of the wall, and that the children could help Bran with his dreaming. Maester Luwin, on the other hand, is the one who tries to rationalise Bran and Rickon dreaming the same dream, as them both just missing their father. In the book, there's no mention of Robb hacking away a tree in grief over his father's death. I've mentioned in previous videos how show Robb seems to be a lot more confident than book Robb, and that may have been done intentionally to add more weight to this scene we're finally seeing break. Also, Cat never says in the book how they will kill all of the Lannisters. I'll come back to this in point number 5. Marillion's back, everyone. The last time we saw him was at Tyrion's trial at the Eyrie in episode 6, and since then he's apparently made his way to King's Landing. In the books, however, he never leaves the Eyrie. Well, technically he does eventually, but we'll get to that later, and it's actually just some other random singer who gets his tongue cut out. The heads Joffrey takes Sansa to look at, including George W. Bush's head, are all facing the wrong way. They should be looking out towards the city for everyone to see, but instead they're facing the wall, kinda defeating the purpose of them being put on display. As Cat never says they will kill all the Lannisters in the book, Cat in the show doesn't try to convince the gathered Northern Lords to sue for peace with the Lannisters by trading their captives for her daughters and then bending the knee. Cat in the books just wants to be done with all the fighting and to have her family back home at Winterfell safe and sound where they can mourn Ned. Show Cat, however, is a lot more angry and vengeful. Instead of finding out about Cersei being unfaithful to Jaime in the next season, since it's in the second book where Tyrion finds this out, we're shown this now. I think this scene was included in the episode just so we can see what Cersei's up to before the end of the season, and to juxtapose Jaime's earlier statement to Cat that there are no men like him, yet Cersei's already replaced him with another, though lesser, version of him. As Show Tywin pours Tyrion wine, Book Tywin gives his own cup to his son to drink from, and both acts surprise Tyrion. The fact he does this though makes more of an impact in the show, due to Tywin moving the jug out of Tyrion's reach in the previous episode. You might assume that when Tywin calls Tyrion his son, Tyrion would be feeling conflicting emotions of anger and happiness. Anger which he has always felt for his father for not treating him like a son, but also happiness that he's finally being acknowledged as his son by him. In the book, however, all Tyrion feels is anger because he realises his father doing this shows that he's given Jaime up for dead, and so now has been forced to turn to his only remaining son to go and act as Hand of the King in his stead. This isn't the first Targaryen baby to be born deformed. Maegor Targaryen I had one son with twisted limbs, a large head and no eyes, then a child with no arms or legs, and both male and female genitalia, and finally another son with no eyes and small wings. These deformities were apparently caused by Maegor's third wife Tyanna, a Pentoshi woman who dabbled in sorcery and alchemy, who poisoned the children whilst in the wombs of Maegor's other wives. Rhaenyra Targaryen is also said to have given birth to a twisted, malformed daughter with a hole in her chest where her heart should have been and a stubby scaled tail, though this account is from the jester Mushroom, who had a habit of embellishing his stories. Rather than it being intentional like what Tyanna did, Mirri Maz Duur first puts Rhaegar's death down to Jorah bringing Dany into the tent when she was dancing with the shadows of death, but then she reveals it was apparently Rhaegar's life that was meant to be used to bring Drogo back the whole time, rather than the life of Drogo's horse. Also in the show, there's no indication that Jorah was also affected by going into the tent, whereas in the book he's described as looking like half a corpse with loose skin, a grey face, hollow eyes, and a limp. In both the book and the show, Mirri Maz Duur tells Dany Drogo will only become like he was when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, the seas dry up, and the mountains blow in the wind like leaves. It's only in the book, though, that she also says, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child. The omission of this line from the show won't be an issue until a much later episode, so stay tuned. Sam riding into a branch and falling off his horse wasn't in the script. This is actually a stunt woman dressed up as Sam and wearing a wig that affected her vision and resulted in her not seeing the branch and riding into it. I wonder if the scream we hear was from the stunt woman or John Bradley. A part in the book which I appreciate not being included in the show is Dany's attempt to get Drogo out of his vegetative state by giving him a blow/hand/titty job. In fact, if her nether regions hadn't been so sore from birthing Rhaego, she would have actually, rode him. Makes me think of that scene in Wolf of Wall Street with a woman aggressively riding a drugged out of his mind Jordan. Glad this doesn't happen with Dany and Drogo in both the book and the show. It would have been a little weird. Pycelle not actually being a knackered old man isn't a thing in the books. It was a suggestion by Pycelle actor Julian Glover, who was very active despite being in his 70s when the first season was filmed. So a scene of Pycelle limbering up was included, inspired by Kaiser Sose going from being physically disabled to not as he walks down the street at the end of The Usual Suspects. Also, Pycelle must have some immense patience because I'd get sick of having to shuffle around everywhere at a snail's pace knowing that I could actually walk faster. The threats Arya says to Hot Pie in the show were actually just things she thinks in the second book A Clash of Kings when she's being picked on by him and Lomi. Instead of threatening Hot Pie, Arya in the book beats the ever-loving crap out of him with the wooden training saw she still has on her from her training with Syrio. It's a shame we didn't get to see Drogo's blood riders gifting her an arak, bow and whip at her wedding, which she declines to accept for herself but instead redirects to her husband because we don't get to now see her gift these to her Cas. She names them Kos and her blood riders in her new Khalasar, but each man tells her she can't lead a Khalasar because she's a woman, and so they can't be her blood riders. Their tune changes though when they see she survived walking into Drogo's funeral pyre, and it is them, not Jorah, who proclaim her blood of my blood. As well as Dany surviving the fire in the show, her hair also survives, whereas in the book it's all burned off. Guess they didn't want to have Emilia Clarke in a bald cap or have her do a Karen Gillan and shave off all her hair. Because of the decision to not have it burned off, we now have to conclude it's show canon that hair is stronger than fire but weak to knives, since Euron uses one to cut off Arya's hair. So those were all my thoughts on the 10th and final episode of the first season of Game of Thrones, Fire and Blood. If you think I missed anything important or interesting, put it in the comment below along with your own thoughts on the episode. My most liked part of the episode goes to a scene I didn't talk about, which is the conversation between Varys and Peter in the throne room. The producers loved the two actors interacting with each other so much that they added this additional scene, and I'm happy they did. Absolutely loved hearing about Varys' gash. And my most disliked part of the episode goes to Sansa's attempt to push Joffrey to his death. Not because the scene was bad or anything, it was great, but she got so close to killing him and saving the Seven Kingdoms a lot of grief. Seven Hells, Sandor, why'd you stop her? Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any advice on what I could do better for the next video, please leave it in a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on Twitter at @SSS_YouTube. I'm also on Odyssey at @SSS:83, so follow me on there if that's how you prefer to watch videos. Thank you again for watching, as I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.